Welcome into College Football Now. I am your host, Harrison Graham. We'll get into 10 candidates to replace Mike Leach as Washington State's next head football coach in just a moment. But first, wanted to remind you guys to subscribe to the channel, youtube.com/chatsportstv. You see the link below for more videos on college football. But the news of the day, Mike Leach is heading to Starkville. He is the next head coach of Mississippi State, leaves Washington State after 8 seasons, where he completely turned around the Washington State Cougars. I don't think people realize just how bad Wazzu was when he took this job. He gets fired from Texas Tech under somewhat questionable circumstances. By the way, Texas Tech has not recovered. Washington State gives him a chance. He completely turns them around. Now he's moving on to Starkville to take over Mississippi State. You look back at Leach's last 5 seasons, Wazzu, in a lot of ways, they were the Rutgers of the Pac-12. They were really, really bad before he got there. And you look at the last 5 years, averaging about 9 wins a season, including 11-2 last year when they were a win away over Washington from possibly making the college football playoff. That's the one thing the next coach at Washington State is going to have to do better than Mike Leach. He went 1-7 in the Apple Cup. I think the biggest surprise here, though, with Leach heading to Mississippi State isn't the fact that he left Washington State for a better job, because Mississippi State is a better job. It's about how fast this came together. So he's going to Mississippi State. Now that leaves a vacancy at Washington State, which leaves this question. Who should Wazzu hire as its next head football coach? Mike Leach was a home run hire. He completely brought Washington State back from the dead and turned them into an 8 or 9 win program again. Can the next coach do that? That's what they're going to try to do. This will be a YouTube ad break here, so scroll down. This will be the pinned comment. Answer this question. Who should Wazzu hire as its next head football coach? Scroll back up. Video will be back in point. All right, let's get into that top 10 list here, starting with, look, this is a bit of a wild one. I was talking to my guy, Tom Downey. We were trying to put our list together. How about Steve Spurrier? And before you go crazy, it's not as crazy as it sounds for a couple of reasons. One, when Spurrier coached in the Alliance of American Football League, whatever that failed league was called last year, he seemed highly energized to me. He looked happy to be out there. I think he really enjoyed coaching again. But more importantly, Steve Spurrier Jr. is on Wazzu's current staff as the wide receivers coach. Here's what you do if you're Washington State. Call the old ball coach up and say, hey, want to come coach for a couple of years? Bridge the gap until we get our next guy? Come on, Steve. Let's get you back in the coaching ranks. Now, obviously, he made his hay as the Florida head coach. He's still an ambassador for the university there. I'm not sure he wants to be a college football coach at 74 years old, but his career speaks for itself. He was great at Florida, got his start at Duke in the late 80s, then obviously his work at South Carolina, turning around a program in the SEC, kind of like what Mike Leach did at Washington State, was some great work as well. The old bald coach is a legend, but I got this question. Will he ever coach again? And I'm not talking about like the XFL or one of these sidebar leagues that keep coming up in the world. Will he be a college football coach again? How about that? Type Y for yes, type in for no. Let me know in the comments section. Next up, coach here, you got Hugh Freeze, the head coach out of Liberty. Now, geographically, this doesn't really make sense. He's been a SEC guy for a while. Obviously got run out of Ole Miss with recruiting violations with the whole, the escort service the situation they had going on there at Ole Miss. So that did not end well. But keep in mind, Washington State hired Mike Leach after he had some allegations thrown against him at Texas Tech. Now, they weren't this serious, but it's not like this would be unforeseen territory for Washington State. I'm not sure the geographical fit makes sense. The Pacific Northwest is an area Hugh Freeze has not coached before. I do think he'll be a Power 5 head coach again. Don't think Washington State is necessarily the right fit. Now, we're all waiting for the college football playoff national championship game. Just a few days away this Monday. Number 3 Clemson, number 1 LSU. If you want to go bet on this game, you got to do it over at BetDSI. Chatsports.com/bet. Use our promo code CFB120 to get that 120% deposit bonus. Line has kind of stayed still for a few days now. 5.5 points. That over-under hasn't moved at 69 points. That's where that's about the number. That's where it's going to be. It's going to be less than a touchdown. Should be a great game. You can bet on all sports. Chatsports.com/bet. Go get signed up with BetDSI. Number 8, Coach, if you haven't heard of this guy here, number 8 replacement for Mike Leach, I should say, Jay Hill. Keep this guy's name in your brains because he's going to keep getting brought up when these type of jobs open up. Head coach at Weber State. Now, he took over that job, an FCS level job, and it took a couple of years to get going. Went 2-10 in his first year. 4 straight FCS playoff appearances, and they've won 10 or more games the last 3 seasons there. Jay Hill's done a great job, and he has ties to the Pac-12. Played at Utah, coached at Utah up until a few years ago before he took the Weber State job. I think he makes sense for a West Coast type of job. I don't think he's going to be at the top of the list, per se, for Washington State, but this is a name to keep an eye on, especially in the future when it comes to West Coast college football. Now, a guy who's very familiar with the Pac-12, that's Steve Sarkisian. Yeah, baby. Sark could be back in the Pac-12. How ironic would this be? He was Washington's head coach, turned that program around about a decade ago. Could he be back in the Apple Cup rivalry, but on the other side? I think it's a possibility. Look, Nick Saban assistants, we know they typically get jobs. Sarkisian's very experienced. We know his troubling history with alcohol, but his connection to the Pac-12 is very well documented. Let's look back at Sark's last decade. Like I said, Washington, 2009, 20-13, over 500 there. Doesn't look great considering what Chris Peterson just did, but at the time, that was a very, very good job by Sarkisian. It landed him the USC head coaching job where he was actually doing fine, 12-6 through about a season and a half, but the alcohol issues took over and they had to fire him midway through his second season. Lands at the Nick Saban School of Coaches Who Can't Coach, becomes an analyst there at Alabama, becomes the Falcons OC. They kind of ran him out of there. They didn't like him that much. And now he's back at Alabama as their offensive coordinator. Kind of a raucous decade, but a coach who's had success on the West Coast, had success at Washington. Maybe Steve Sarkisian is the right guy for Washington State. Now, I want to remind you guys to subscribe to the channel, youtube.com/chatsportstv. We do college football hot boards, the latest rumors, news, recruiting information. We are live for early National Signing Day. We're going to be live for the National Championship game this Monday. Tom and Mitch will keep you guys entertained throughout the game, keep you guys updated with LSU and Clemson. Mark your calendars, January 13th, 8 o'clock Eastern time. That's when the game is set to kick off, probably be a few minutes later, but we'll be live for the entire game, keeping you guys updated. youtube.com/chatsportstv. Make sure you hit that big red button. Number 6 candidate here to replace Mike Leach at Washington State, Nick ROLOVICH, the head coach at Hawaii, did a great job this year. Overall, he's done a great job, 28-27, kind of revitalizing Hawaii after a few down years. Won 10 games this season. Now, I really wish Cole McDonald hadn't turned pro because my pipe dream theory was hire Nick ROLOVICH and bring Cole McDonald with him, the Hawaii quarterback who had a great year. But he can play for the draft, so that can't happen. But ROLOVICH should be a candidate here. He is a Hawaii alum, but a Power 5 job is hard to turn down. I think he would have some interest. I think he's certainly a worthy candidate for Washington State. Number 5 guy here, I've got Sonny Dykes, the coach at SMU. Has Pac-12 experience when he coached at the University of Cal. Great turnaround at SMU the last couple of seasons. Won 10 games this year, first time since SMU received the death penalty in the mid-1980s. And if you want to stick with the air raid offense, there's not many guys better than Sonny Dykes that are still available this late in the process. Because keep in mind, most of recruiting for this year is already done. If you want to get a guy who can stabilize a program quickly, you could do worse than Sonny Dykes. He's been about a 500 coach, so not a ton of success, but 500 or better at Washington State is an acceptable number. Now, Leach has certainly raised the standard there with what he's been able to do the last 4 or 5 years, but Sonny Dykes has done a decent job. He wasn't great at Cal, but his other 2 stops, he's done pretty well. He's doing great work at SMU, and if you want to keep the air raid system in place, Sonny Dykes is certainly a good option. Number 4 coach here, Andy Avalos, the defensive coordinator out of Oregon. True up-and-coming defensive mind. Now, usually when you think the Oregon Ducks, you think finesse, speed type of team, not super physical. That changed under Mario Cristobal, and Andy Avalos has a big reason to do with that. Top 15 defense in almost every category this year in college football. Oregon became a physical defensive team this year, and Avalos is a big reason why. He spent 7 years on Boise State staff before that, so he's got that kind of Mountain West Pac-12 regional tie there, and he's not even 40 years old yet. This guy is a true up-and-comer. You bring him in, and then you find the right offensive coordinator to pair with him, that could be a nice little staff to build on at Washington State. Now, we've got some gear for you guys on sale, up to 50% off, including this hoodie, this Washington State hoodie for you Wazzu fans. I think this one's about 30% off right now. Chatsports.com/NCAA gear is where you can find all this stuff. We got hoodies. We got quarter zip jackets. Mississippi State just hired Mike Leach. If there's a few of you stragglers watching, there you go. Go take advantage of that deal. We got jerseys, hats, beanies, socks, all kinds of stuff. Chatsports.com/NCAA gear. Tons of gear up to 50% off with our partners, Fanatics. So go take advantage of those deals today. Now let's get into the top three here, our Mike Leach replacements. I think the top three are pretty interchangeable. I think they could go in any direction here, and it would make a lot of sense. Jim McElwain. Now, things did not end great for McElwain at Florida, but he still won the SEC East twice. As bad as it was, he got to the SEC title game twice in 3 seasons. Now, keep in mind, he took the Central Michigan job this offseason. That team went 1-11 last year, and they won 8 games this year and got to the MAC title game. That is not bad at all. And Washington State, unlike Florida, is not a high-profile job in the spotlight. He has excelled at under-the-radar jobs. Colorado State, he turned that program around. Did great work with Central Michigan this year. Really wasn't even that bad at Florida. Went 22-12. Obviously, they're better off with Dan Mullen, but Jim McElwain, I think he gets a bad rap for whatever reason. He's a better coach than Florida fans will tell you. He's done a good job at some below-average programs. I think he could do good work at Washington State as well. Now, which head coach would you rather hire, Washington State fans? I'm asking you. Type S for Sarkisian, type M for McElwain. I'll be curious to see what the ratio is here, considering Sark used to coach at the University of Washington. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section. Number 2 guy here, Graham Harrell. This might be my favorite candidate on this list. Played under Mike Leach at Texas Tech, including the best year in the history of Texas Tech back in 2008 when they won 11 games. He is an air raid Mike Leach disciple. He has moved up fast in the coaching ranks. He was a receivers coach at Wazzu in 2015. Mike Leach brought him on in 2014 as an offensive analyst. Took the North Texas play calling job. Now he's at USC. USC just gave him an extension after Texas tried to bring him in as their OC. He's going to be in the mix for head coaching jobs very, very soon. Here's an interesting quote from Mike Leach himself on Graham Harrell just last summer. This is about him when he left Washington State. To be perfectly honest, I thought he was better off staying with us instead of going to North Texas at the time, because I thought he'd end up getting the head job if he stayed with us. And I still suspect that's the case. But I thought his chances of getting a head job were potentially quicker staying with us. So Graham Harrell certainly has Mike Leach's letter of endorsement. He thinks highly of the kid. I think he would be a great candidate for Washington State. Top guy here, Alex Grinch, the defensive coordinator at Oklahoma. I can't speak highly enough on this guy. Forget the game against LSU in the college football playoff semifinal. That is just a team being outmanned by a terrific offense. Oklahoma, what he did there this year is remarkable. They were one of the worst, if not the worst defense in the country statistically last season. They were top 50 this year. That's a really good job in just one season. Did similar work at Washington State. When he got there, one of the worst defenses in the country, made him a top 50 defense. Then he went to Ohio State in 2018 as the co-DC. Comes to Oklahoma. Lincoln Riley hires him, turns that defense around. Obviously knows Washington State well. If they want to hire a guy they're familiar with, Alex Grinch makes the most sense. He gets the right offensive coordinator to come with him. That would be an excellent coaching staff. We asked you earlier, we're going to ask you again, who should Wazzu hire as its head football coach? It's going to be the pinned comment, so make sure you reply to it in the comment section. I'll be interested to see who replaces Mike Leach